Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2025 Chess World Cup. This is the last recap. It's been a fun month. It's been a fun month of chess. This tournament every year brings a lot of excitement, a lot of epic matchups. Yet somehow it always ends very, unexcitingly. Is that a word? We have a champion. But when you win the World Cup in soccer or football, it's just incredible. There's tension until the last second. So I'm going to tell you about the champion, of course, and then I'm going to talk a little bit big picture about the candidates, chess generally, and so on and so forth. So, not to start the recap on a negative note, and actually there might be a lot of people from Uzbekistan and also from China who are going to watch this. Shout out to them. Let's cover the final day of chess. So these two gentlemen show up and they sit down for rapid games. And the more chess that gets played, if they do not break their tie, they keep shortening the time control. That's the way that it works. Sandarov opens up the first game with the move d4. So he completely leaves e4. He does not want to deal with the Petrov that Wei Yi plays. So he plays d4. Wei Yi responds knight f6. It's the most common move nowadays. And then after c4, Wei Yi plays e6. The idea is to play the queen's gambit declined. And white now can choose between knight c3, allowing the Nimzo Indian, which Wei Yi would unquestionably play, or knight f3 and making black actually put this pawn here. Now we have the move knight c3. So in this position, black has many options. Black can play the traditional queen's gambit decline. Black can play bishop to b4, which is called the Rogozin. Also very nice opening. There's many lines. Wei Yi chooses bishop to b4. He thought for a little bit on this move. It's not that he didn't remember it. I think, honestly, he was just making some sort of a decision. Sandarov played bishop g5. So both people pinning their respective knights. Black plays h6. We have a trade. And we have this move e3. So you've gotten rid of your dark squared bishop, which is pretty normal in these types of positions. And then what you will do next is you will put a rook on c1, because that way you support the knight and you don't double your pawn structure. Generally, black is castling here, which is exactly what he did. Sandarov plays rook c1. Very, very straightforward position. Knight d7 chosen by Wei Yi. Can't be a bad move. And now queen b3 targets the bishop. Black now has the choice of defending the bishop with a pawn before actually committing to move it. Retreating now would make a lot less sense. First of all, you would simply be losing a pawn. But even if you weren't losing a pawn, this is just generally not really where you want the bishop. But I think if black could get both, they would consider it. But okay, you take the knight, the queen takes, and just c6. I mean, this is just typical Wei Yi. Just like rock solid, very slightly worse from the opening, but just going to play neutralizing type of chess. Sandarov plays a4. Typical move, trying to gain space on the side of the board he's stronger. Wei Yi instantly responding with rook e8, threatening to counterattack in the center. To be honest with you, he actually could have maybe played a5 here, but he goes rook e8, preparing a strike back in the center of the board. Sandarov plays a5. Sandarov showing fantastic opening preparation, by the way. Excellent. Up 3 minutes in a rapid game. He's advancing on the queen side. Notice how he is actually not fully developing. You know, you would be watching this as a player in the 99% of the rating ladder going, why is he pushing a flank pawn up the board? This is chess at the highest level, you know? He has the luxury of not finishing his development, instead gaining space on a flank, disallowing the pawns from coming forward, and neutralizing the opponent's knight and not letting it move forward as well. Engines nowadays love space. It's almost like Go, right? Like in Go, this is going to sound idiotic, and I'm not going to try to talk about Go like I understand anything, but like territory matters, right? And I think many engines really love this type of pawn play. Now, there is an age-old saying in chess, okay? It says, if you subscribe to Gotham Chess, on average, you will gain 300 ELO in the first year alone. I think that's the saying. The second saying is, when you are being attacked on the side of the board, you should strike back in the middle. And that's what Wei Yi does, and now the position's going to get very critical. So actually, white should take this pawn, but not take this pawn. So in this position, white should do this. Keep the tension here with this pawn, because if you trade everything down, here white has a completely dominant position. more active pieces, very clear infiltration idea with the rook, a weak pawn for black, an isolated pawn. But instead of doing that, Sindarov played pawn takes e5. He just overthought it. Long think, wrong think is what they say. It's another, nugget of wisdom. He spent 5 minutes on this move. He shouldn't have played it. He should have played pawn takes d5 and bishop e5. You know what's funny? I actually think Sindarov knew that. I have a feeling he knew that even this was the right way to play. But he just, it's the World Cup final. So you take, right? And then after this, now you don't have much. Because now you are going for this position, and here you simply don't have anything. I mean, I think he went for this position and basically said, okay, well, in the long run, I will never, ever, ever lose this, provided I don't blunder my rook in a time trouble. Sorry, Andrei. Pawn takes, rook takes, and Wei Yi just has to defend this position. Now, let me tell you something right now. If Jahangir Sindarov was Magnus Carlsen, there's your mandatory Magnus Carlsen mention in a video, I would be putting the money on him because... the pieces are very passive. White's king is way more active, which is very important in endgames, particularly when there are no queens on the board. And then, we would move the bishop, we would move the rook, and we would slowly advance. We would create a pass pawn, and that is exactly what Sindarov begins doing. I mean, he just methodically walks up the board. We have rook c1 played. By the way, very nice idea. You cannot actually take this pawn. And now this position, and here, White is playing for a win. I mean, White is going to try to get over here, zigzag his way on the dark squares. Here comes Black bringing the king. Now we're going to have a king race, f6. But Wei Yi is actually suffering a tiny bit. Now, you know what's completely insane here? h4, Wei Yi plays g5. Sindarov is winning. Right here. Sindarov is winning. g5 was a mistake. You know why it was a mistake? It was an overcommitment of a pawn move. Sometimes, in pawn endgames, moving a pawn 2 squares when it doesn't have to will lose you the game. You overextend. And for this move, these pawns become weak, and White wins here with bishop e4, an incredible move. The idea of bishop e4 is quite simple. If the trade happens, you take with the king and you threaten to go here, and if I take, of course I just get over here and I eat the pawns. If this, h5, and Black is actually out of moves after g3. You want it to be a moment where Black has to cede the way to you and you get in, right? So if Black goes king e6, king c5, king d7, whoop, and now you're going to go over here. So in this position, whichever pawn Black pushes, like here, you just play f4. And now Black has to give the path to you. You would play king e5, king b5, king f5, king a5. You can take this pawn, and then what will happen is you will both queen, but what happens is you queen first, and then you give a check and you win the queen. So you are actually just winning. It's kind of crazy. If you play bishop e4, and if bishop c6, and he doesn't take you, you play h5, and now it's Zugzwang. Now Black doesn't have a move. Because if Black goes back, we already know. You take, and in this position, you run for this pawn. King b5, it actually looks like you will lose this race. Isn't this crazy? But you don't take the pawn. You go king g6. I don't think this is very findable. I'm going to be very honest. Like, I don't know if this is all findable. And to be honest with you, in the game, Sindarov doesn't find it. He didn't find bishop e4. He didn't see, like, how it was winning exactly, which makes a lot of sense. And his chance to become a World Cup champion very quickly dissipates. You will notice that, in this position, Black is just always there. The second that you come here, I will face you. The second you come here, I will face you. The second you come here, I will go back. I can even go forward, actually. It doesn't even matter. But the second you go here, I'm going to go here. And it takes some 45 moves, but the players make a draw. Crazy. So now we have to play another tiebreak game, and we will keep playing tiebreak games until somebody wins, which might be now. I have no idea. Yes, I do. I saw the games. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. This time, Wei Yi does not go for the 4 knights. He challenges Sindarov in the Italian. A man from Uzbekistan playing a man from China in India, and an Italian is on the board. Chess is beautiful. Knight f6, d3. Bishop e7 from Sindarov. We have castles, and knight c3 controlling the d5 square. And then White is going to play a4, simultaneously preventing knight a5 jumps, and also, not letting Black get a lot of counterplay. Bishop g4 from Sindarov, who is looking to pin the knight. White immediately attacks it. And what's funny is if the bishop had gone here, there are some lines where I would even bank on g4, but right away you have to be a little careful because there's sometimes stuff like this, and this can get very nasty. Bishop e3 stops the knight from coming to d4, but then black will play king h8, f5, and immediately start an attack. But there are some lines where if the bishop ends up here, white is just much, much better. So that's why Sindarov, rather than, messing around, he takes queen f3, knight d4, and he goes for this position. Now we have bishop a2 from Wei Yi. Knight e6 back from Sindarov, clearly still in his opening preparation, by the way. Rook e1, bishop e3. At some point, the sides are going to have to clash. You will notice both guys have their pawns. That means the position is still relatively closed, right? Nobody has decided to open up the board in any sort of way. Okay, we just develop a queen that took 3 minutes to play. Very nice move. Also fighting for the center, and just various ideas of, just bringing like a rook to the middle and a knight to e2, and maybe playing for d4, right? Stuff like that. Rook d8. h4, h4, wow, okay, h4 is not a move that I was expecting. If anything, I was expecting to prepare d4, but he goes h4, okay, and now we have queen d7, and my mustache is slightly too long, so every time I say certain words, the hairs tickle the inside lining of my nose, and it makes it extremely difficult to finish my sentence. So after this video, I'm going to go pluck this hair over here. Now you know a little bit more about me. Queen h3. I promise I'm not, on any of the good stuff. Then the recaps would be far more energetic. Bishop takes e6. So we trade the bishop for the knight. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why would we trade such a powerful piece for this knight? Well, I think the idea long term is that you just kind of have a target. I mean, it's not easy. Also, I'm not going to lie. I really don't think Wei Yi is playing this move out of confidence. He is down 3 minutes on the clock. He's just sort of playing this move to make a practical decision. I mean, at this point, the computer wants to play knight b1, which, if you're playing knight b1, it's probably not a very good sign to have to reroute the knight to b1 and to d2. And, Wei Yi kind of understands that. He gets that he needs to move the knight from the c3 square. It's never going to be able to move forward. But instead he plays knight e2, and Sindarov now plays d5. It's clear that black has the momentum. The problem is that even if you have the momentum in a position like this, we are so far away from anybody having a decisive advantage. So, knight goes to g3 now, all right? And a big question here for black. What do you do with your d5 pawn? Do you push it? Are you going to take? Are you going to leave it? Yeah, you're not going to do either of the first two, because if you take, these pawns are completely horrible for the rest of the game, and if you push, this pawn is horrible for the rest of the game. So you actually need the pawn there, so all these pawns kind of work together. So after knight g3, we have rook f8. Yeah, this is just kind of like a pass-back move. Wei Yi obviously still trying to play for something, and Sindarov just disallowing it. In fact, if anything, he has just benefited himself because he has access to the g5 square. Rook e2, rook f7, rook e1. We are stacking our rooks with the sole intention of just putting more pressure on the e-file in the long run. Now, here Sindarov makes a really, really big mistake. Really big mistake. He plays bishop to d6. This is a very serious blunder. He had an opportunity to put 8 pieces on the same file. He could have played rook e8, queen e8, or knight e8. Frankly, any of those moves would have been okay. Queen e8 would have hung a pawn, actually. But knight e8 would have even been, okay. Rook e8 would have been fine. And he just doesn't do that. Not only does he not do that, he moves a piece off the e-file. And this is simply inexcusable. I don't know how a player of this strength and experience can make such a mistake. Obviously, he should have played something to the e8 square. So bishop d6, supporting the pawn on e5. Very close position. Wei Yi still maneuvering. It's quite clear he's got a very, very direct plan. Rook d f8. Bishop c3. And now, finally, he scares Sindarov into committing this pawn forward. Now, Sindarov didn't have to do that. He could have went knight h7. He could have actually used the square granted to him by that pawn push. And then if pawn takes d5, in comes knight g5. Anywhere you move the queen, I have pawn takes. And if you try to win this, I mean, it just doesn't work at all. You just lose the pawn on f2. That's actually not even the best move. The best move is rook f4 to force the queen to h1, and then you take. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is kind of iconic. I mean, the queen on h1 is really quite a miserable piece. So Sindarov did not have to go d4, but he does. He goes to d4, bishop to d2, and c5. And this game will be ultimately decided in a massive time trouble. So knight back to f1, queen e8, played by Sindarov. All right, we have rook to a1 trying to prepare something on the queen side, and rook to e7 simply maintaining the tension. At some point, the boys can kind of like rail it in. Like, this is just going to be equal. Knight g3, the queen moves, knight back to f1. When you are playing knight g3, knight f1, yeah, it's time to set up the pieces and play the next game. You obviously don't have a winning plan right now. You don't, it's not there, right? And Sindarov at this moment is like, well, I can shuffle back and forth, right? I mean, he just went queen e8. So it could have been knight and knight back and queen e8 and knight g3. No, he goes b5. Sindarov says, this is my moment. I have 4 minutes versus 2. I'm going to play b5. I'm going to play c4. Wei Yi is like, I got this dude right where I want him. I got him right where I want him, you know? Like, he thinks he's going to beat me. Ain't no chance. Ain't no chance. He's not going to beat me. It's not going to happen. Knight h2. I have tricked many more opponents in this tournament. c4. What's crazy about this is that now white is better. White is better. It looks like black is playing completely legitimately, but actually white is playing for a win. Pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, and just knight g4. And in the long run, it's actually going to be really difficult for black to have these pawns because none of them can move, right? So the only hope that black has is maybe pushing or taking and then getting in and somehow winning this endgame. I have no idea how Sindarov thinks that he is going to win this position. He doesn't have any forward mobility. None. Rook f7 back. Wei Yi plays f3. Rook a7. We have rook d1, and Wei Yi has officially dipped below 1 minute. Every time he makes a move, he gains 10 seconds on the clock, but right now, he is below a minute on the clock. Rook to b7. Quite clear, rook b2 isn't coming to put pressure over here. But then you're going to abandon your king, and maybe you're even going to get checkmated. I'm going to prepare a pawn push, hide my king, etc. Wei Yi plays queen to g4. We have queen e8 stabilizing the position. Wei Yi goes king to h2. What do you do if you're Sindarov? Do you commit everything on the second rank? Do you simply play a stabilizing move? He opts for a stabilizing move, queen f7. It is a very tense game where both gentlemen know very, very well that they can both put down their arms and play another game. They both know it's a case of mutually assured destruction. The second that one person makes a lunge forward, the other person will immediately counterattack. G3. Wei Yi, though, is still preparing some nasty business. Here comes rook bb2, rook c1. All rooks are stacked against the critical c2 pawn. Now black can do anything. Black goes king h7. At this point, you can literally play king h3, king g8, king g2, and just repeat the position. Wei Yi plays king g2. If I'm playing with black, I go back to g8. But, okay, Sindarov leaves the position, indicating that maybe this is the idea. Maybe he has an idea to actually open up the g file. That is very interesting. And also, Wei Yi has an idea to open up a file. Wei Yi plays rook f1. Wei Yi is like, yo, come back and let's make a draw. Sindarov's like, no. Hit me. You want f4 on the board? Hit me with f4. Wei Yi plays f4. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm telling you, there were pawn breaks abound in the position, but white was not going to get away with f4 if you went and targeted the c2 pawn. We have pawn takes f4. We have e5 now, played by Wei Yi. Actually, pawn takes f4 here might have even been a little bit stronger. All right. Pawn takes f4, we're going to do a little bit stronger, but e5 is played. And now Sindarov can move the bishop. And Wei Yi plays rook f4, and he's winning. And Sindarov has 24 seconds on the clock. I told you a long time ago, Javakhir did all this stuff, but in the long run, it really felt like he didn't have the stability in the position to call the shots. Queen e8 is played. You had to stop queen g6, obviously. And now I'm going to go rook ef2, and well, actually, you know, now that I look at this position, I've already looked at this position. How exactly is Wei Yi going to win? Now a very clutch move from Sindarov. Very clutch. You know what he plays? Rook a1. Rook a1 played. Just monitoring. Rook e1, rook e5 is an idea. Rook c1, always an idea as well. Rook d1, rook d2, an idea. Not right away, don't hang your rook, but always an idea. Now, queen f3 from Wei Yi, the best move. The rook is hanging. Don't blunder that. This man is trying to steal another man's rook for the second time. Can you believe it? And Sindarov doesn't blunder it. Rook bb1. This is very scary. But what's funny is that after queen e4 and queen g6, queen e4, king back, and queen g6, offering to trade off the queens, this is a dominant position for white. It's nearly mate. The bishop is the only lifeline. And there's no mate here, because what happens is the king runs out to g4. So queen e4, king g8, Wei Yi is cooking here. g4 instead. He could have went queen g6. This allows rook h1. It's still equal, but by the way, Wei Yi played that move with 1 second on the clock. So there was 1 second. He plays g4 and hits the clock. He goes up to 11 seconds. Rook to h1 attacks the bishop. This move is also played with 1 second on the clock. He plays 2 moves with 1 second on the clock. And remember, the move previous, queen e4 check, was played with 2 seconds on the clock, and this was also played with 1 second on the clock, and this was played with 3. So 3 seconds, then this move was played with 1, 2, 1, and then he played then he played this move with 1, rook e1. He now has to make a move again. He makes this move with a little bit more time. But he made 3 or 4 moves with literally 1 second remaining on time, and he finds the best move, takes. Now the position's back to equal. The bishop goes back to e7. We trade, but this is coming. What do you play here? I mean, somehow in all of this, he's been outmaneuvered. What do you play here with white? There is only one path to survive, and it is virtually unfindable. King. You have to move your king to g2. Because if queen h4, the only defensive measure for Wei Yi to stop getting mated is to sacrifice the rook f8. If king to h7, queen e4 is mate, and if you take check, you zip in, and it is the most unfathomable repetition. Queen b7, if you run this way, here, and even if the queen comes back, it's still a draw. Why? Because you're still attacking the rook. Yo. Wei Yi had to go king g2, bait in the queen, and if he had subscribed to just a few more Gotham videos, dare I say, maybe this would have dawned on him. I would love to know if 2,700 rated players are sitting there in tournament halls going, the rook! Probably not. But instead of that, in this position, Wei Yi saw this coming, and he played rook takes d4. He played this move with 1 second on the clock. Again. But unfortunately, now queen h4 is fatal, and Sindarov completely reverses the position, wins the rook. There is no check, there is no draw now, and Javakhir Sindarov wins the World Cup. He wins $120,000. I think second place is either 95 or 85. I think there's a difference of 25 or 35K. I cannot quite remember. He becomes the youngest ever player to win the World Cup, but I think this is going to keep happening. I think players younger and younger are going to keep setting records in chess. Javakhir played 25 games of chess in the last few weeks. He lost 1 game. Yeah, that's kind of going to do it. And he's in the candidates. Now, and so is Wei Yi. Now, I've already announced the field of candidates. It's Wei Yi, Sindarov, Yesipenko from the World Cup. From the Grand Swiss, it's Anish Giri and Matthias Blubaum. We have Prague in the circuit. We have Fabi in the previous circuit. We have Hikaru in the rating spot. The average rating of the candidates, if it started today, would be 2747, which is the second lowest in like 20 or 30 years. The last one actually was slightly lower. The more interesting thing is, in this candidates, we have 3 players outside of the top 20 in the world. Sindarov might be like 18 now or something, but it's very, very close. So really, this candidates is a total random thing. Like, I will make a tier list of the candidates moving forward, I think. But I mean, very, very random candidates tournament. As always, I said in the beginning of the recap, like, the World Cup's definitely a little strange, in the sense that the last day you are crowned a champion, but you already got the grand prize. But now Sindarov will be celebrated all over Uzbekistan, and, you know, it's amazing, you know, that they have, that they are not just, you know, it's not just Nodirbek from Uzbekistan. You have Sindarov, you have Yakoboyev, who obviously was in the top 4 as well. Massive congratulations to him. And as far as all other serious issues in the world of chess go, we will continue to talk about them. I talked about them at the beginning of the World Cup, and at this point, waiting as always to see what happens with the decisions coming from the International Chess Federation. That is all for the coverage of the 2025 World Cup. I hope you enjoyed it. And more fun content to end the year is definitely coming. So stay tuned and get out of here.